Hi everyone, welcome to TELSIG, and this is the last episode of 2025, so quite a moment. This is probably the most unscripted episode we'll ever do, so I'm quite looking forward to this. I'm joined for our, I guess what I'm going to call our festive roundtable update of fun, unless I think of a better idea for a title before this podcast drops, which hopefully I will. But I'm joined for this roundtable by James Lamont from University of York and Deanne Cobb-Zygadlo from Nazarbayev University. Welcome, guys. How's it going?
Hiya, how you doing?
Good.
Mm.
Good to be here.
All right, intros. I think, Deanne, everyone knows you, but tell us anyway, remind everyone who you are, what you're doing, and what you do when you're not appearing on podcasts and organising TELSIG events.
Okay, well, it's been an interesting year for sure. So I am a EAP teaching fellow with Nazarbayev University in Kazakhstan. I've been here. This is my 11th year teaching at Nazarbayev. But this year I took on a community service role of being assessments lead for our EAP program. And just for context, our program has 670 students in it, all currently taking the exact same program. It was actually touch and go whether I would be here today because there's continuing drama, I could say, about our most recent assessment. Some issues with Wi-Fi went down. So it's just it's a mark of how much we've gotten used to the technology, I think, and we forget about these fail-safes.
Yeah, that's going to be one of my discussion points. So brilliant. All right, we're prepped. James, welcome to the gang. You've not been here before.
Thanks. Yeah, first time. Yeah, so if you've not met me before, I'm James Lamont. I used to work with Phil in the Pathways College, and now I work in the education department at the University of York, teaching in-sessional English and academic skills. Originally, it started off as more of an EAP position, but it's become more of a sort of skills support, critical thinking, academic writing, whatever the department needs, really. So yeah, working with students there, really enjoying it, and trying to get some papers published in the meantime.
Yeah, a new paper out. So you've had a paper accepted. Have you got a publication date yet for this?
Not yet a date. I mean, I've heard it's going to be published by the end of the year, which would surprise me greatly. So, but if not early next year, I expect. It's with the JOUT Call journal, so Japan Association of Language Technology, Computer Assisted Language Learning.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Talking to Algorithms, Not Students. It's about the student use of machine translation. Like a couple of years ago, I noticed that when I was teaching academic skills support classes for education students, an awful lot of students, a surprising number, would just be, they'd spend the entire class looking at their phone. So I'd start to investigate, like, what are they doing on their phones? Are they just on social media? And then I'd talk to them and I'd see that my words were getting transcribed directly and then translated live. Actually, very good translation as well. So, I mean, this just struck me the wrong way. I felt very odd about this, that the students are able to record everything I say and see it translated. And like in many ways, this is really good. It means that students can participate and keep up. Clearly, they're having difficulties or a lack of confidence in keeping up with my speech in class. So hearing it on their phone and seeing it translated like that is probably a good way to help them keep up. But at the same time, it poses all kinds of interesting questions like, so are they really participating in the class if they're looking at their phone all the time? What does it say about their language level? Do you think they can meet the language proficiency requirements of their course? And like, what does it say about issues of privacy and security if students are just recording everything without any kind of consent or request? And also, finally, they seemed a bit unconfident and shy about using their phones. Like a lot of them would try and hide it, but they were using translation software. I think there was a general consensus this was something bad. Yeah, there's lots to talk about there. So that's why I investigated in my paper. Sorry if you just wanted a quick introduction. I just told you all about my research as well, but there we go.
No, that's cool. Well, so I think the last time we talked about this was, it's about a year ago. We had Mike Groves and Klaus Lamont on the podcast, and they were talking about the machine translation work they'd done and the parallels with AI. I think they were sort of, very kind of accepting of it. And there's the school of thought where it's kind of like, come on, guys, we've got to get with the program. This is how students learn now. Who are we to dictate our arcane methodologies and
Yeah, Groves and Lamont did some really good research about this, and they, in particular, their research on how lecturers perceive this is really interesting because it just seems to become overnight. It was just kind of accepted, like you say, students are doing this. Is there a problem with this? No, not really. But to me, like a lot of people, it did strike me the wrong way. From In my research, we sent out a questionnaire to lots of lecturers in the department, and it was a bit of a mix between lecturers who were saying, "Yeah, this is necessary. Clearly, they're struggling with the language. Anything to help them keep up." And people who said basically the same thing, but much more negatively, like clearly they can't keep up with the language. This is terrible. So it ties in with an idea that the university has lower language requirements. This has been documented by various newspapers, but lowered language requirements make it much easier to get into universities to help keep these master's courses funded. And this, had a lot of issues. This led a lot of staff members feeling very unhappy about this.
Yeah, I mean, they were surveying kind of attitudes and reactions from various subject lecturers who kind of noticed the same thing you were talking about, either in class translation or.
Yeah.
Deanne, what's your take on all of this?
Well, it's interesting because I think anytime that technology comes up, we have these two binary kind of positions. One where it's, it's fine, it helps, whatever helps them get through and what have you. And then on the other side, we have the yes, but they're not ready. And I think we're seeing this with all kinds of technology right now. And it's interesting because this actually ties into one of the papers I wanted to discuss today, which is the paper by Sarah Eaton on post-plagiarism, and this idea that, plagiarism itself, you come at it, there's this traditional narrative arc of, somebody has to be the villain and somebody has to be the hero of the story. And I think sometimes we tend to want to make the students into the villain. And in other times we want to make the technology a tool. And it's an interesting thing. And when we start talking about that in the age of AI and machine translation, I think it disrupts what we see our role as a teacher. And that in turn makes us feel uncomfortable. And because we feel uncomfortable, then we tend to see it as a negative thing. And I think it's somewhere a little bit of both, and it's not necessarily one or the other. It's very interesting what you're saying about this. I see students doing machine translation in my classroom as well, but actually what I find more common is subtitles. They have a very hard time watching videos without subtitles. And I only recently understood that apparently this is also a sign sometimes of learning differences. So apparently subtitles, without having the additional level of a second language, subtitles are often used by students with ADHD because they have difficulty with the oral comprehension, not in terms of language, but in terms of being able to connect ideas. And so many students with ADHD will use subtitles even in their first language. And so sometimes I look at this and I have to question myself, is it a language barrier, or am I seeing something that is just undiagnosed or that I'm unaware of? And I think that reacting to it immediately can be very harmful to that relationship with the students. So sometimes it's necessary to have more of a conversation with them about it. But that's from my own personal teaching perspective.
There's also an issue as well with this, where as the teachers have a responsibility to set the best conditions for learning in your class. And this is another question I wanted to put to you guys about, like, the couple of papers that I put on the show notes about digital detoxes, and are we having a rethink about what class time is for? And there's kind of little connections over here to what you guys have both been talking about, because I was thinking with the subtitles, obviously, the other thing is that it's from a standard science of learning point of view, there are very different things going on when you're reading subtitles or when your brain is processing audio in your L1 or in your target language. What's happening with when you're processing the audio unaided, you are developing that sort of automaticity, right? I mean, your brain is just processing is a few stages behind the message, and it's that repeated exposure and the constant workout of your brain of, understanding in real time that develops what we call automaticity, which kind of makes its way onto rubrics a lot of the time. And without that, if you throw subtitles into the mix, there may be a net gain, but you've got to bear in mind that there's different processing going on. We are not the students are not doing the same thing with their brains. So we can pull these levers and twitch things in the class and, allow digital devices, or we can collect them. But every one of those decisions creates a different set of learning conditions in the class. I don't know if this is a good link to that, the digital detox ideas. I've put a couple of papers on here that I'll link to in the show notes below as well. So the paper was, the blog article was, when the phones go out the window, learning comes in the door. The study published on SSRN, which sort of demonstrated a net learning gain when phones are collected at the beginning.
Mm.
So the only intervention was phones are collected. So yeah, I'm interested if you guys have a take on that. And James, if this links to your thoughts or motivations for your study on machine translation and just your experience as teachers, what are you trying to achieve in the class? And do you personally favor getting with the program, letting students real-time translate, or do you have your reservations in line with the sort of points put forward in these digital detox papers?
I think Deanne makes lots of good points about, the benefits and how useful these tools can be for students who are neurodiverse or struggle with communication, struggle with keeping up with the speed of the class. One of the main findings we found in our paper and from other studies which have looked into this is that students, it's not necessarily language problems they have, it's just the speed of lectures and seminars and things that they can't keep up with. And in a lot of cultures, like admitting that you don't understand something, that's not like an opportunity to learn and grow, that's an opportunity to be punished. So I think a lot of our students feel afraid of showing their lack of understanding. But I am quite keen on the idea of getting rid of phones in the classroom. I think it would have to be done extremely carefully. Like recently, I taught a bunch of UK undergraduates, and there was a section where I asked students to do some writing, and I asked, who hasn't got a pen? And I thought a couple of students put their hand up, but at least half the students didn't have any kind of writing implement with them. So it needs to be something which is carefully introduced. You need to set out at the start of the course, this is a no phones course, so we expect you to bring these things. The university, of course, has loads of pens and paper, so we can provide them, but as a professional skill, you need to have your own pens and paper with you. We need to teach students to be aware of this, because for a lot of our students, they do just get into class, open up the laptop and start typing. As another student asked me recently, what are students typing? All the information is on the slide. They don't need to type anything. But I think for a lot of students, it's instinctual to just be typing stuff all the time. So I think we'd need to really set up this class in a way which we get students who really agree with us that digital detox is the best way to learn, and who want to try it and who are committed to it. I don't think we could just walk in and say, right, guys, put your phones in a box. These things are worth £1,000, by the way, so they're super valuable, these phones. They're not just going to hand them over.
Yeah, and obviously what if a student just says no?
Yeah.
And
like SSP thing, student support plans and students' neurodiversity requirements might mean that we would struggle to argue with them about that. They might say that I need it to be able to survive in class, and then we're on potentially thin ice. So it can be difficult.
Well, I come at this from a very different kind of perspective. So before I came to Nazarbayev University, my career actually had a different trajectory. I was director of a language resource center in the United States, and I'd had similar roles up in Canada and such. So my background was actually more ed tech, and teaching was kind of a secondary thing that went along with it. And it's interesting because I've always had the rule that pedagogy leads. It's not about the technology. Technology is only something that can help you, but it isn't about the technology. It's centered fully on the pedagogy. And in fact, I remember I was up for a job at a big name university in the US at one point in time, and I went through the interview process and I did not get the job. And I knew people who worked there, so I asked them for some feedback on what it was that had decided against me. And apparently the new head of the center had decided that I was too pedagogy focused. I wasn't tech focused enough. And
did you get that in writing?
No, I did not get that in writing. But I sat there and I thought to myself, you know what? I'm okay with that. Obviously, this is not where I want to be, because for me, pedagogy needs to lead. So my students at the beginning of the year, I told them that, yes, you need to bring your laptops. Yes, bring your phones. There will be times that we will use them, but there will also be times where I will ask you to put them away, and I will expect you to put them away and not touch them. And so from the very beginning of the year, I set that out. Now I'm always of the view of a course should never be only one thing or only the other thing. There should be room depending on what the focus of the lesson is, depending on what the student need is, depending on how I think they can best achieve the best learning outcome with the material, to be able to fluctuate between using technology or having it strictly put away. And I have to say, actually, my students have been very good this year. Perhaps because this discussion about digital detox, this discussion about the harmful effects of multitasking or being distracted in class, they've been discussing these in high school. And so they're now coming to university with this awareness of the pitfalls of having devices. And so they recognize that, sometimes it's a good thing to put them away. Do I sometimes have the occasion where a student, will use their phone when I didn't want them to? Very rarely, but yes, it does happen. What I don't have this year are students answering phone calls from their mothers in the middle of my class, which was quite a common occurrence in the immediate years after COVID.
Yeah, I think I've not had that for a while, but I think it's I have tried it. So the last few times I think it was a couple of weeks ago, I actually had a full AI. We're not everything is about AI. A full device detox. I was just like, put them away. We are not using them for this entire class. And we did hand wrote, started to plan out a composition by hand, turning notes into a structured piece of writing. And point of that was to really force this recall muscle. So we've covered a lot of this stuff, and I'm not even going to give you the option to go back and check slides from the classes that we're referring to. I just want to see what you can remember. And some of this was from the previous session, some of this we had to go a little bit further back. But they were working with pens and papers, and it was the most productive class I've ever had. But that was the one that I've done where, because every now and again I'll be like, okay, we don't need phones for this section. And trying to get them to put them away is impossible. Once they're out of the bag, trying to get students to put their phones back is really hard. And that's before you take into account the fact that, a lot of the VLE, everything, the materials, there might be things they do need to read and refer to. Unless you print everything out, it's all there online. And this, the technology is so interwoven into the delivery, you almost feel like you're some sort of Amish, alternate off-grid lifestyle propagator. It's very hard to untangle the class from the tech sometimes, but
how did your students take it when you told them that they're going to go have a tech-free session?
They were fine, no issues at all, and they actually and do you know what? One of the things that I found that I think is in the Kirshner article as well, that the weakest students benefited the most. The students there was one student in particular who was very device dependent, and was using it to hide behind and get either as a shield from participating in the class, or just to, very dependent on that little dopamine hit of checking a social media feed that you find reassuring. Whatever was going on, having that away, the student then started producing work. It's a one-off. This is very anecdotal. I'm not presenting it as evidence or anything, but it does chime with what Paul Kirshner is talking about in this paper. So I'm definitely going to work more of it into the classes, I think. And I've got a class on tomorrow, which I think I am going to do this again and just say you don't need these now. But unfortunately, they've got a presentation and slides are involved. So what do you do with that? I'll just get one of those old overhead projectors see if I can get one on eBay. And do you remember you used to have to write overheads on acetate?
Yeah, I remember the school teachers would bring out this clear paper and stick that on the overhead projector.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah,
saying, you're going to use one of those? Yeah, maybe we can see
if I can get one. Yeah, they're probably sort of going for a fair sum now. They're probably sort of antiques. Yeah, so I just wanted to close this one off by asking what do you think? What is class time for? And because we did go a little bit crazy after COVID with the amount of stuff we could flip. We're thinking, well, let's we've got all this tech, we should be using it effectively. Things like instant feedback, error correction for sort of controlled practices. If you're a language teacher, there's little, grammar checks and everything. Much better to be put onto flipped platforms. And obviously the independent study, the term papers, the essays, the portfolios, these really should be done outside of class. And this is getting your interleaved practice. It's just, the repetition, you're exercising the recall, but they're doing it in their own time. Class time should be for this higher order thinking. And now some of this research is saying, well, because of AI, because the incentive structures have changed so much, is now the class, is its true strength or potential strength somewhere where you can go for a distraction-free hour, 2 hours, where you switch devices off and you focus on a task that you can get into what Cal Newport would call deep work, and you get a quality of focus that you wouldn't get or are unlikely to get outside of class in your own time. So, but this involves bringing all the things that we'd usually flip back into class. What do you guys have a sense of a right answer here on this?
It's a very pertinent question, definitely, because for UK universities, we're struggling a lot with attendance, to be honest with you. Like, attendance rates have plummeted in recent years. Undergraduates, postgraduates, students actually coming to class, a lot of them seems to think that it's not worth their while. And a lot of that must come down to the flipped learning attitude that we have, where materials are online, you can do the learning by yourself. Students may struggle to see what the value of coming to class is, and whether it's more important than like part-time work or catching up with their assignments or even just resting. So I think it's definitely a very relevant question we've got these days. One thing which I do think is important for being in class is the opportunity to talk to other people about a subject.
Yeah.
With AI, like you can talk about a topic, you can talk about an issue, but with a computer, and that will give you some advice. But you've the opportunity to actually discuss a topic with other students, with your peers, with teachers, and have like a proper discussion, a bit of dialogic pedagogy is a really great one for learning. And I think that's something which we risk losing out on if we can continue with a more flipped learning approach. It's really important just to get students just to talk to each other and compare ideas. And that's where one of the ways that learning can take place is just through discussion, through bouncing ideas off each other, by sharpening your own ideas and coming up with counter arguments and things. That's what AI tries to replicate, but I think other people can usually do it better.
Well, wasn't that a big idea, big tenet of flipped learning was that you flip out the boring stuff, the mundane stuff that you can do by yourself, and then in class, discussion was a big part of flipped learning. So it was all that.
It absolutely hasn't worked out like that though. Like, a lot of the time, even with flipped learning classes, the students come and they expect to have, a lecture style situation. We don't really get the discussion. I think that teachers can set up students better to discuss something in class. You can't just expect students to come, they're fully prepared, we've all done the same preparation, they've all got the same ideas and can happily have a discussion about this. As teachers, we need to set up what a class is what our expectations are, what the students are going to learn from this class. And that seems to be the most effective way to really get students to learn, just through discussion. But it has to be like a guided discussion. It has to be part of a lesson plan. You can't just expect students just to do their preparation fully by themselves, because the evidence suggests that's not what they do at the time.
Yeah, we did not find that flipped learning worked with our students, and we've pretty much abandoned that at this point. We have a few little pre-class tasks here and there, but as a rule, we are not following flipped learning anymore. We tried for the first few years after COVID, but we were just finding there was just not the uptake in the students, and more students were skipping it than were doing it, and it was having a detrimental effect on the classroom as a whole, not only for the students, but also for the teachers, because the frustration level was just going through the roof. And that then set up a very, cantankerous relationship between student and teacher. So we've moved to having a lot less flipped, but definitely more. Well, for myself, I can't say that I can speak for everyone, but I do have a tendency to do more reactive teaching, partly because I find that the needs of my students are so different in our group. We have in some of our classes, we have students as low as 5.56 in some of the IELTS skills, but then we have other students who are as high as 8. And so to try and hit what the lesson plan needs to be for all of those can be quite difficult. So trying to make use of that classroom time for reactive feedback and teaching has become very key, and a lot of a formative assessment of not in the sense of a set formative assessment, but in terms of continuously looking to see what students are struggling with, and trying to respond to those at the time, and making sure that the collaborative learning is set up that those students who are weaker can gain more by working with others that might be able to scaffold things for them, and that sort of thing. So I think a lot more has come down to those kind of approaches in the last few years for me than any particular flipped learning approach has.
All right, guys, I'm going to ask you a cheeky question now. So, do students still need a certain level of unaided English language proficiency to participate in an international academic environment?
Do you mind if I go first on this one?
Go for it.
I think it depends on the institution. I think it's very important to understand what it is that they are going to be expected to do, how they're going to be assessed, what the language skills are needed, and how those all interplay in their undergraduate or graduate studies. For our institution, the university as a whole has seen a mass increase in the number of sit-down exams. And so for us, that increased our need to prepare our students for timed writing exams and being able to produce language without assistance. We didn't have many of those. Actually, we didn't have any timed writing exams up until about 2 years ago. But with AI coming in and the university as a whole reacting to it as they did, for us to serve our students and the university as they are expecting, we needed to reintroduce those. Will there be a time where that won't be the case anymore again? Quite possibly. But right now we are dealing with the circumstances of what our institutional context is and trying to serve our constituents as best as we can. And I won't say it's the only way, but it is what is needed right now here.
Yeah, agree with Diane on that one. So I think the issue is students, the best way to deal with AI in assessments does seem to be pen and paper exams, oral assessments, those sort of things. And some universities are really going for it, really recognizing that AI does pose a challenge to the validity of an assessment, and they're enabling these kind of tests. Sometimes it can be quite hard to get universities to take this on board because, well, to put simply, to have an assessment, an exam like that, you need to have enough exam rooms. You need to have invigilators, facilitators. And I think some universities are not built for that. A lot of universities, they took on more and more students in the age of pandemic because the assessments were done online. The assessments were done through essays written at home. And I'm not sure if my university has the facilities to be able to do all these kind of oral assessments and written exams yet, which is a bit of a question because I think there's also an idea that written exams are an outdated, like old Victorian idea of learning. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if that's true. Like I went to university 20 years ago and I did loads of written exams then, and we were allowed to bring books and notes in and things like that. It was an effective way to test us on our ability to work under pressure, which is a necessary skill which universities should be teaching students. So I absolutely agree with you there. I think certainly if the university will allow it, if it's possible to make it work, then more high stakes but pressured assessments in controlled environments does seem to be the best way forward. Otherwise, university students, there's no reason why a student couldn't potentially set up an AI system to be able to do their work for them. And you can end up one university will end up giving a degree to an AI bot at some point.
Right. So is it possible to have, you guys have both been thinking about this for a while, and we've talked about it a lot. What do you think, is it still possible to have a valid assessment that provides evidence of students' learning and capability if it's unsupervised? And that is the end of the podcast.
I think the real question is, was it ever possible to have a 100% valid assessment that was unsupervised. I mean, cheaters will cheat. Um, I know that there are a great many more tempted to do it now in the AI age. I'm not saying that there isn't an increase in concern, but I would still argue that before AI, we could never have a fully secure, even a supervised assessment can never be fully secured, to be honest. I mean, there's instances that in my own career where, students have had other people write their papers or assessments for them. They've had, ghostwriting, all kinds of different ways to cheat on unsupervised assessments. I think what the difference is that it's now readily available in the pocket, whereas it was not before.
Easy to cheat now.
Yeah.
Whereas before then, cheating required a little bit. You had to jump through a few hoops. Like
Yeah.
you'd see the advertisements for essay mills just left on the student coffee tables in the campus sometimes. But now, it's the technology companies can continually design their apps to make it easier and easier and easier to cheat. So that's.
But
I
even
mean, we're in a different era now.
yeah, but even secure exams, both before and now. One that I just recently heard of was a student that had arranged for someone else to take an exam in Respondus lockdown browser, not in the classroom. The exam was supposed to be in the classroom, but using Respondus lockdown so that you'd have supervision and the Respondus. And they arranged for somebody else to take it outside of the classroom. And then they used screenshots to try and fool the invigilator in the classroom that they were actually in the exam.
Later the exam, to be honest with you, that sounds like a lot of preparation.
It is, but
Yeah.
it's quite amazing to see what ingenuity students will come up with to be able to try and cheat in exams. So, it's going to happen. We can never have a fully secure. We can never have a fully valid assessment in that.
Did you catch? Was that person caught?
Yes. That's
Okay.
why we know about it.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, we know about these things because the person was caught. Like the level of the challenge of faking that exam was crazy compared to how easy an online essay would be if you had ChatGPT or Claude or something. Especially when the universities are telling students you should use these AI tools. I think what's really, the real missing link here is both clear guidance about how it is acceptable to use tools, which should be grounded in research. The research is very new, so the trouble is we don't have very much yet. So like the Cosmina et al., Your Brain on ChatGPT MIT Brain Study seems to suggest that the best way to incorporate AI is to get students to think and work themselves, and then have them incorporate AI suggestions into their work as like a second draft afterwards. That seems to result in the most the greatest engagement and probably the best output in terms of work. But it's very early days yet. But where was I going with this? But the issue, so it's new. So we need clear guidance, but also I think universities should be teaching students how to use AI tools effectively. Like, we have all these academic writing seminars teaching students how to write for us essays. But at the moment, a lot of universities are still catching up with how do we teach students to use AI in an effective way? Because if you can use it, it's a massive tool. You talk to students who know what they're doing with AI, and clearly, like, they're thinking critically about it. They're being quite creative in how they use it, and they're getting the best grades. That's one thing we can really work on, I think.
Part of this is the fact that the technology loop is moving so fast, and we as instructors are always feeling like we're behind the curve. We haven't caught up to what is capable, and how exactly then to change our pedagogy, to change our approach to and every single faculty member is at their own individual level in that. And then if you work in a program like mine where you have so many students and so many faculty members, but the expectation is that the student experience and assessments and everything will be absolutely the same across courses, then that adds that additional issue of one who knows cannot move ahead while another is still struggling, and it creates for some difficulty between colleagues even. But one of the things that I thought was really interesting in the articles that we were reading for today, or the ones that you had shared with us, Phil, was this give and take between these two papers about whether or not AI is bullshit. What AI puts out is bullshit. And I thought it was quite, I mean, the response to the original article is quite good, except that they come from a positive bias. They come from a bias that somehow AI is always going to be seeking to put forth the truth. And yet we know that that's not always true, because we have different truths depending on which AI agent you use. And so it's an interesting debate even in that.
Yeah, I got to be honest. So I know I suggested that paper, but I didn't actually get around to reading that
You
one.
didn't get
I
around
only
to
read
reading
the
it.
bullshit one. So I just told you guys to read it and then didn't.
It
But,
was fascinating, actually, but the response to it was even more fascinating. And
yeah, I'm just like, I think a couple of points. I'll move on quickly because I'm conscious of time. I don't want to drown in AI. I know we get bogged down in this every time, but like I think this issue of finding an assessment that gets students to work with AI, I just have really huge problems with that, because it's like, just why? Like, going back to what you said at the beginning, Deanne, like you're letting the tech lead, not the pedagogy, right? I mean, what is it that you're trying to achieve with a module with its learning outcomes? Like, you want as much of this to be transferred in students' long-term memory as possible. You want the concepts to be properly kind of incorporated insofar as they can be. You want evidence that they've changed or properly enmeshed some of the ideas that you're talking about in your course. Exactly where does AI fit into that? I mean, it's like, because I've read a few of these examples, like more than a character account of like really creative ways in which AI could be used. It's like, oh yeah, it's amazing. You could have them create their own AI, and have the bot do all this stuff, and then you screenshot each part of the process, and then you put that as part of and I was just thinking, but why? Like, what? How is this actually helping? I mean, and some of them are really imaginative and they're really creative, and I was thinking, okay, that's intrinsically interesting, but I don't understand how it helps move towards the learning of the material that you're
Which subject was this for?
I think it was it was philosophy. It was a post someone put on LinkedIn. It was one of these sort of mini essays that someone put on LinkedIn, and it was ethics philosophy or something.
Well, as you say, it's a really clever idea, but it seems to have forgotten the philosophy bit in there as well. If you're getting AI to think for you, then like surely, what we're doing is philosophy, not AI studies. So you have to be, like, it's all well and good to get students to get an AI to do the learning for you, but then you don't learn.
Well, Phil, if I may, I'll just turn this into a plug for the symposium. So for our listeners,
Oh yeah, I
if
meant
it
to get that
hasn't
in there.
been,
Yes, do that, because I would have forgotten. Yeah.
if it hasn't been released yet, we will be issuing a call for proposals for our TELSIG symposium on the 2nd of February. So watch for emails and social media notices about that. And the reason I'm bringing this up now is that I will say, well, this is exactly what I'm going to talk about in my presentation as part of that symposium, is how I've been using the use of AI to reinforce things that we've already taught students about, things like evaluation of source, of verifying information, of dealing with argument and counter argument, and how that can be brought in without ignoring one perspective or voice in the argument overall. I won't give too much away because I think that'll be my presentation at the symposium. So
Nice. Yeah, we'll plug that. I'll put a proper plug for that in the show notes as well when this goes out. Yeah. TELSIG Symposium. We haven't had one for ages, but
where are we having it with you?
Online.
Well, it's going to be online.
Online. We do a flip learning session. Maybe we could get everyone a text to read beforehand, see if anyone actually reads it.
Yeah, and don't let them in if they
Yeah.
not right. Conscious of time, so I want to squeeze a few reactions in from you guys. Now, I'm interested to know whether it matters whether AI authorship is present in competitions, art and So I'm going to ask you a few questions about initial reactions to music. So would you listen to AI music? There could be like an AI version of your favorite artist, or would you pay for it?
Yeah. I would listen to it. I'm not sure if I'd pay for it or if I'd choose it over seeing or listening to a real artist. I will admit to that. Um, and to be honest, I'm not sure if that's a generational bias on my part or if that is just, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I can get past decades and decades of training that, music is art and is the expression of being human. I don't know how to get past that in my brain.
A lot of music we have these days sounds like it was generated by AI anyway, so like I'm not sure if it'd be that different experience. I would pay if the music was good enough, but I mean, it's very easy to access free music anyway these days, even they're created by humans. So I feel the whole structure of music industry is not well designed at the moment, and it's going to have a difficult time adapting to AI.
Have you heard any of these? I'm thinking of like, if anyone's familiar with the Velvet Sundown, this AI generated band that's sort of supposedly got
It's
these
entirely
millions of
possible.
listeners.
I've heard AI music without noticing it, but I've never explicitly listened to an AI generated song.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what the latest is on who actually made this. It might have been a music company kind of like testing the market for AI authored material. But yeah, there's the Velvet Sundown and a whole bunch of others that have their AI generated bands basically with bios, images, and of course the songs. And they have hundreds of thousands, might be in the millions now, of listeners, monthly listeners, which to me is just to me personally it dilutes. As soon as I know something's AI, I'm like, okay. So let me switch it. I'll give you a few other examples. Favorite author? Would you read? Yeah, favorite literary author? Would you read their next novel if it was AI generated? Could be a long dead author.
For the sake of curiosity, yes. Would I return to it the same way? Probably not. But for the sake of curiosity, yes.
I guess if I was reading it for entertainment, like a beach read or something like that, then yeah, sure. But if it was, if it was touted as like the next big thing, like something that's really going to make you think, I'd be very skeptical. I probably want to read it out of curiosity, as you say, but initially, like something feels wrong about that. Yeah, I don't have a problem with sort of light entertainment being generated by machines. I think that's potentially a really good use for it.
Yeah, I'm genuinely interested in your answers here because I don't know. I'm not like.
Now you have me very curious about how Dickens would write about the advent of AI. I will admit.
Okay, AI art gallery. Would you pay £5 to get into, what's that in dollars at the moment? I don't know. Would you pay $10 to go and see an AI art gallery?
Yes, because I enjoy moaning about the state of contemporary art, so I would have plenty of ammunition if I did that. It'd be great fun. I'd have a lovely time. But yeah, as I say, the same with music. I feel like a lot of contemporary art, it might as well have been generated by AI. There's not much ingenuity or vision there. I might be being, increasingly conservative as I get older and older, but there we go.
The music of kids today. So,
all
right.
my
yes,
kids
you
like
young men.
music taste. I think they're so much fun.
So, James, you're right. With your child being the age he is, you've not yet encountered K-pop Demon Hunters.
We watched K-pop Demon Hunters in Son of Jury one. Was that an AI generated film? It felt like it.
No, but the tunes, as much as I love them, are auto-tuned to within an inch of their lives. So,
yeah. Well, I liked the magpie and the tiger. That was cool, and because I'd learned more about the Korean mythology of magpies and tigers at the time, so it made it all a bit more meaningful. But I think we both agreed that if the magpie and the tiger weren't in it, it would be not a very good film.
Well, that's controversial. All right. Okay. All right, final one. All right, so this is really interesting. You're sort of saying things which I'm thinking as well. As like I was like, yes, it does matter, but I can't give a satisfactory reason as to why. I would struggle to give an objective reason as to why and how much AI authorship involved in a process would put me off. And there's been a few papers as well saying, sort of suggesting this idea that we're AI bias and we're sort of too human centric, which I'm struggling to empathize with. But
yeah, that sounds like we're putting AI into a position of being equal to human and therefore somehow being disadvantaged by our bias. And that's that
But
it's an
to me,
interesting
there's a
social
different.
justice idea.
So there's a difference because it's like you. Obviously, one of the first things that AI was really good at were things like Go and chess, and we know that AI can beat human players, but you don't get humans. Humans still like playing other people. You don't get humans flocking to AI chess websites. I'm sure they're popular, but the popularity of playing against another person still has its own place.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I will, as we're talking about this, I'm left with the words of my 19-year-old son, who granted is an IT person, and is somewhat, for being an IT person, he's anti-tech in some ways, which is very confusing to me. He repeatedly reminds me that LLMs are not AI, that calling them AI is a misconstruction of the term of artificial intelligence. They are Gen AI, but they are not true artificial intelligence. So we have to be careful whether we're talking about Gen AI or whether we're talking about, say, playing against a chess AI, because he sees them as two very different technologies.
I mean, once we get to AGI, perhaps we can reconsider this question. But for now, chatbots are very good at pumping out the kind of text that we want them to. So I think we're a long way off having to privilege them.
Yeah. All right. Any final thoughts? So what have we not addressed that you guys wanted to do a quick fire take on before we close out? What have been your big learning tech EAP issues for 2025?
That it does no good just to simply tell students, don't do this, and it's not going to help your learning. That ultimately they need to learn themselves, and understand why it is that we say it negatively affects their learning environment. For us, it seemed to be really powerful to have all the students read an article based on the study about the effect on cognitive thinking of using AI, and have them understand that there's real science behind it, not simply teachers standing there being Luddites and technophobes.
Yeah, I agree with Deanne there. I think that it comes down to us. This is a good opportunity for us to think about what learning really is, to be able to tell students that. With the massification of higher education, teaching students has become largely a case of trying to manage massive workloads. So this is a good opportunity to us to think about what are we doing, how can we teach students effectively, what do students need to know, and how can we best teach them there when they've got these incredible tools that can do the job of like a 2-2 student for them.
You guys going anywhere for Christmas, or are you?
All I want for Christmas is some time. Is like a couple of hours sleep, but yeah, we'll deal with that later.
Oh, one more rapid fire. Favorite Christmas song?
Huron Carol. No one's going to know it. The Huron Carol.
No, never heard of it.
That one. I mean, comes on the radio and you're like,
okay, so only Canadian
Christmas.
radio, but Huron Carol comes on the radio. It's a Canadian. It's the
Okay.
only real Canadian Christmas carol, not song, but carol, and it will
Link
come
in the
on.
show notes.
You'll have to look it up. It's haunting.
James, you good King Wenceslas. Is that what you're going with?
I'm going to change my controversial opinion there to driving home for Christmas. Like anyone who's been an EAP person knows how nice it is to go back home to your home country for Christmas every once in a while. Yeah, and yeah, it hit a note with me when I was out in Japan.
All right, nice one.
You sound unimpressed with our choices. What's yours?
No, I'm not into sort of criticizing other people's music choice. I'm purely interested because it's such a subjective thing. It's just genuinely interesting to hear what other people listen to. Like for me, I remember the Pogues one is great because I remember jamming to that on the roof of a pub at Christmas about 10 years ago. We got some guitars and festive drinks and just had a smoky barbecue on a rooftop bar in London, and it was just brilliant. We were just playing that. We'd actually practiced it beforehand, and there was a few of us with guitars, banjos, and a djembe.
Do you know I did not know that song until I moved here, and now it's just known as the epitome of UK Christmas music. But I'd never heard it before moving here. I probably have only known it for
Really?
the last couple of years too. So there you go. So your song is just as culturally delineated as mine.
It's strange how, like, in this December, like in the UK, you're not allowed to play non-Christmas music anywhere. It's like non-stop. They should mix up the Christmas music and the non-Christmas music.
Are
so
you
that
not
we
allowed? What
appreciate
you mean, like
Christmas.
in stores and things?
Yeah, in stores and stuff. It's just like, it's non-stop. You never hear anything that isn't Christmas music. I'm reminded of when I used to work at BHS, my Christmas job, like just on a continuous loop. There's only about 7 songs, but
My son's commented, Mariah Carey. My son's commented that every time we stepped foot in a grocery store in North America in December, it was all I want for Christmas. That's all. That's the only thing that would ever play in the grocery store every time we went. It's Mariah
How much do
Carey.
you think she's made off of that song?
Oof.
That must be.
Mhm. Okay, so favorite Christmas movie.
are we supposed to say Die Hard at this point? Or-
That's the debate whether it. Yeah, is it?
Depends. I'll
it's
just
still
call you
never
Chandler
resolved, is
then.
it? Love Actually was the one that had a. It was just the time it was released, and I remember a certain period of my life. I remember it was kind of cool. It was genuinely funny as well.
It's a Wonderful Life.
Okay. Mine
I said that
is
the other day. I've never seen it.
mine is now Last Christmas.
Yeah. Well, let me put a quick shout out to everyone who's listening, because I was just saying to James before we logged on, we've had we just had thousands of downloads this year, and
Wow.
it's been really great. And whoever you are, wherever you are in the world, whatever your job is, thank you for all the shares and listens. And James and I were just chatting about how much work this actually is to do all this stuff, and we put on these seminars and do these podcasts, and to see that people listen to it is really amazing. And I wish everyone an awesome break, happy holidays, whatever it is you're celebrating, and see everyone in 2026.
Happy New Year too.
Happy Christmas.
Thank you, guys.